Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Heart of Sports with Jason Springer and Jeff Cohen, powered by ELEC 825. We are thrilled to join you on WWDB 860 AM and 97.5 HD2, part of the Beasley Media Group, ready to help you move into the weekend, talking about all the news in the world of sports. Jeff, there's a lot to talk about in the world of sports today.
Forget that. You almost forgot what station we're on.
Well, here's the deal. I forgot what station we're on, and I'm trying to...
Do you know what city we're in?
I don't even know what...
If you're going to start pretending you're a Cowboys fan, can we just end this right now and go straight to the weekend?
That won't happen. And we've got Keith Pompey, noted not Cowboys fan, joining us. So I want to make sure we bring him in from Locked On Sixers, the Inquirer.
Wait, before we talk to him, though, just to finish this, do the whole circle on Dallas.
Yes.
You sent me something yesterday from the Philadelphia Union that was classic, where they congratulated every city who got the World Cup.
Except for Dallas. It was wonderful. Whoever runs their social media accounts needs a raise. Did you also see the segment from the weatherman earlier this week on Dallas?
No, I don't watch the weather.
So it was a weatherman in Mississippi.
That's what you have a phone for.
It was the weatherman in Mississippi who said that they were going to get Dallas weather because it was going to be in the 90s all week long.
All right. So the fact that you just brought up a weatherman in Mississippi, we're done with this conversation.
It was Dallas, man.
No.
I'm sorry. We didn't start with Michigan. Keith, go ahead.
No, we end with him taking a shot at Michigan. We don't start with that.
What was it? The coach's grandson committed to Notre Dame.
Yeah, I know. And how do I know that? Because you sent it to me.
Yeah, it's like, wow.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate
Lloyd Carr, right? It was him, right?
It was Lloyd Carr. Yeah, the one who won the national championship. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, they fired him, and then wow.
So,
yeah. All right, so Keith, I got a question to start this whole thing off. So yesterday was the NBA Finals. Golden State wins again. And I sent you something this morning because all of a sudden I woke up and my first thought, sadly, was there are two former first-round picks from the Sixers, Andre Iguodala and Drew Holiday, who have a combined now 5 NBA titles.
Now, is that real? I know Drew has one. So Iguodala won all 4? Was he there?
Yes, 4. Yep.
I sense a story.
How's the process working out now?
Yeah.
How's that set up?
Yeah, that's a hurt piece right there. I mean, when you think about it, because, that hurts because you got rid of, Iguodala left beforehand. Like, it's one of those things where he wanted out of Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
But, these were 2 stars. They were the 2 stars of the team. And 9 years later, they're still stars, to a certain point. Like I know Iguodala is no longer the man, but as you saw him yelling at Wiggins on the sidelines, coaching him up, so to speak, you realize how vital he would be. And you look at guys like Joel, Ben Simmons when he was here, Tyrese Maxey. He would have been a great locker room guy who could come off the bench and do things for them, But this is a bad sign, I guess, for the process when you see these 2 guys celebrating and winning championships.
Yeah, and the problem with it for me is not necessarily do you sit there and unravel everything and say they would have won a championship here. But you look at situations, and one of the things that seems evident now, not only when you talk about like what you talked about with Andre Iguodala and him being a leader and a locker room guy and stuff, it's Wiggins. Wiggins has turned into now a star, and it's clear that the situation that he's in matters.
Yeah.
And so you look at the Sixers and the organization in just the last decade. Do the Sixers have the kind of organization that you can bring somebody in here that's going to thrive, that's going to be better than they were where they are?
I think that's to be determined right about now. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you have like Daryl Morey and you have, Doc Rivers now going into their 3rd year. But you can say beforehand, you could say no, just because they didn't have the culture. And the culture still needs some improvement to do. But, it's hard to answer that just because of they've only had 2 years. Now, I will say this, You look at the 76ers, and the knock on the Sixers franchise right now is, I know Al Horford, struggled mightily as a 76er, but then he goes to Boston, and he fits in well. He goes back and he becomes a quality contributor. You look at Jimmy Butler. Everybody talks about Jimmy Butler, about what he did against the Toronto Raptors, how he was one of the better players in that playoff series. But there were games during the regular season where he was frustrated because he didn't live up to the hype, so to speak. So you look at it where, now you're seeing guys who leave here and they thrive at other places because they're in better positions. But I do think that, and then you look at James Harden right now, came in here struggling. It's like, it just seems like it's always that way. Guys come here, Tobias Harris, people are saying he doesn't live up to the contract. James Harden, he comes here, people are saying, oh, he's shot. Al Horford, he comes here, they said he was shot. So to me, that's seems like the biggest theme when you talk about the 76ers right now. And I think that, hopefully for them, that they hope that they can turn that corner, with free agency this summer if they're able to bring in someone.
And along those lines, we'll stick with the Sixers before we go back to the NBA at large. You wrote this week that multiple league sources have said the team's gauging interest in Tobias, Matisse, Furkan. They did end up re-upping Shake, but I don't know if they would move him with that contract. I mean, as small as just under $2 million. Danny Green and the 23rd pick. What do they think they need to get? It seems like they're willing to move everything, including Jeff's tickets, by the way, for his seats. Minus,
don't get me started.
Minus Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and James Harden right now. It seems like everything is for sale on this team to try and remake the vision. What do they want that vision to be of this team?
I mean, the vision I think that they need is, in regards to vision, in regards to the type of players they're trying to bring in. Is that what the question you're asking? I mean, because of course they want to win a championship, but if that's the question you're asking, I think that the vision is they want tougher players. They want more players with more physicality, right? They also want some versatile wings. Like when you look at their guards and their wings, is like Matisse Thybulle is a quality defender, 2-time second team all defensive player, but he's not a good shooter. You look at Shake Milton, he's a scorer, but he's not a great point guard, so to speak, and he's not a good defensive player. Furkan Korkmaz, he can shoot, but he's not consistent. But then he plays a little bit of point guard, but he's not a point guard. So I think what they're looking for guys who can be more versatile and play on both ends of the floor, but also they're looking for some tough guys. I mean, you look at it, and the lack of physicality really showed up in that series against Miami. And it showed up in years in the past, too, where you just looked at them and you saw them get pushed around a little bit. So I think ideally, if you want me to say a team, so to speak, that resembles what they want is a team kind of sort of like Miami they lost to, where you do have the stars. And the stars are tough, but at the same time, a lot of their role players have that dog in them and no back down. Besides one guy, who's from Michigan, but he's a really good shooter, so they keep him. But he's just not the physical guy. But outside of that, you get what I'm saying.
There you go. I guess Keith is signing off now. Yeah, Keith, what you're talking about makes sense, but that's a major overhaul of your roster.
Exactly.
There's nobody on this team that fits what you just described. And Jason said something that made an assumption that I'm not so sure. Maybe you can make everybody feel better. There's 3 guys that are off the table. Is Tyrese Maxey really off the table? If Washington said, we'll give you Bradley Beal for Tyrese Maxey,
I think that they would have to, I think they would have to, if Washington said that, I think the Sixers would have to consider it. depending on what they want. Now, me, would I do it? I wouldn't do it.
You create
Because,
such a small window with older players. You
yeah,
don't have picks in the coming years. You end up with nothing. You have like a 1 or 2 year window to win, and then you're left with not even a bare cupboard. They take the cupboard out.
But what have we seen over the years? And Maury's no different. They're star hunters.
Oh, yeah. I know, it scares
and
me.
I think, and let me plug the Inquirer.com. Go to Inquirer.com where you get that you don't go after the stars anymore. It's not going to work. I wrote that last week. But anyway, sorry about that. Sorry about that, y'all. But look, here's the deal. The thing is, you're right. They're going after stars. Now, here's the thing about Bradley Beal. And somebody, I had a conversation with a close friend yesterday, and he pointed this out. Bradley Beal's been injured for like the last 2 years, right? So another time you're bringing in a guy who's injured, right? So he's probably not going to play the entire season, which is not a plus. And the one thing that, like you said, Jeff, they're going after these stars. Bradley Beal was second in the league in scoring the last 2 seasons, not this one, but the previous 2 seasons. He was second in the league in scoring, right? My thing is, people think that they're going to get that Bradley Beal. It's hard to get that when you're playing with Embiid, right? You're not going to have the ball in your hands as much as you want it to because you have Harden. Secondly, you got everything goes through Embiid. So that person that everybody's saying they're going to get is going to be a different type of person, right? You're not getting that. And then also, is he going to be happy when he's not the first option? Or if he doesn't get the ball as much,
or is Harden going to be happy is Harden going to be happy when he gets the ball more?
I mean, exactly. So I think we're going to have some problems with that. Now, another thing about Tyrese Maxey, the thing that I like about Maxey is, here's a guy who, he still has a ways to go. I mean, he has to become a better passer. He needs to be better on the defensive end. But he can get out and go. And he's found a way to get his buckets in the flow of the game, so to speak, right? A lot of guys who go from being ball dominant players and number one options, I don't know if they can do that. I also think that Maxey is the type of guy who can become an all-star. Like Drew Holiday became an all-star. I feel like when you look at Maxey, he has a huge upside that he will be one. And he has a lot of value on his contract. Like you guys said, they're going to go in now, you're going to get this guy. And then all of a sudden, in a couple of years, the window is closed. I think Maxey can become the star once Embiid is done, right? Then Maxey can become be that guy, kind of like how you went from Dr. J, Moses Malone, to Charles Barkley, right? But if you basically go out there and go get another star, another max salary guy, within 3 years is over.
Yep.
The Sixers are like, no one's talking about them. They're going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers after LeBron James left. It's like, we had it and now we don't have anything left. But if you continue with Maxey, I feel like, those guys are going to come off the bench. Maxey is going to ascend to become a star. He's going to get paid. They're going to have cap space, and they're going to be able to bring in other players to play alongside him. So I don't know if I would do that because I don't think that getting Bradley Beal is saying all of a sudden we're going to beat the Milwaukee Bucks, we're going to beat the Boston Celtics and come out of the East. I just don't see it that way.
No, I mean, we've seen at some point those guys are going to have to come off the court. And if you got a bunch of guys who can't find the basket, or my complaint, the coach doesn't give the young guys the chance to learn how to find the basket in the season, just drops them in the ocean during the playoffs and tells them to figure it out, you're not going to have that success. And I mean, we see it all the time. You look at Golden State, they've got stars, but they've got role players. They've got guys that are on small contracts that are veterans that can be leadership. They've got guys that are younger that they've invested in. You've got Looney out there. They traded for Wiggins, who anybody in the NBA could have had Wiggins. Like, let's be honest. The Minnesota was trying to ship him to everywhere. Separate from when he was drafted, Minnesota would have traded him for bag of balls at one point because he couldn't get along with Jimmy Butler. So, like, people need to be real about what it is. So let's go back to what the stars are. You wrote the other day about James Harden. It looks like they're expected to pick up his option for 2022, 2023. But the Sixers, thankfully, seem hesitant to commit to 4 years of James Harden max contract. What are the conversations of where people will be comfortable in terms of the commitment that James Harden is seeking versus what the Sixers are willing to make?
That's a great question. I mean, I think a lot of it might be for a couple of years. Like if you pay him for a couple of years, it's kind of like, I guess in their eyes, it could be one of those things like with Tobias Harris. Deep down, they didn't give him the max. They gave him close to the max, but they didn't give him the full max. There's some people who are critical of that contract, but they didn't give him the max. I think, me personally, I think that, it'll be one of those things where I would probably wait until after this season, the next season, to decide what I want to do. But I'm also hearing that there are certain teams that really are interested in James. So James may have some options, not to get, the super max or whatever, but some options. So whereas the Sixers maybe feel like they're forced to do something with him. But with that, I say 2 years. I say 2 years. And then see where that goes after that, because that gives you 3 years. And then you'll have him, Embiid, and Maxey. Now, Tobias will come off the books on that 3rd year, so you see what you have. I think that you have this year and 2 more. I think that's perfect. I honestly do. I think that's perfect.
Are the Sixers going to do anything before the draft? I mean, are they just sitting? I mean, I'm sure they're doing something, but are they waiting till the draft to see whether they can do something? Because I see people getting frustrated that the Mavericks can make a move like getting Christian Wood a week and a half, 2 weeks before a draft, while the Sixers clearly need more and haven't, at least visibly, we're not seeing anything.
Well, I mean, first of all, like you look at the Mavericks getting Christian Wood. Do the Sixers have anybody on their roster like Christian Wood that you can that's really tradable? No, they don't. And also the Sixers, they can't really get their biggest asset right now, and maybe it's not a good asset. I mean, it's like that. It's Tobias Harris contract, but that's not the asset I'm talking about. I'm talking about the 23rd pick in the draft. So when you're looking at it, you're saying to yourself, okay, the 23rd pick in the draft, is that player really going to help me? But if I can get Christian Wood, that's completely different than saying, okay, I'm going to give you Furkan Korkmaz. I'm going to give you Matisse Thybulle, even though I think Matisse is a hell of a defensive player and all this. Or I'm going to give you Shake Milton, or I'm going to give you Danny Green, who can't play this year. So, you know what I mean? And then some people are shying away from Tobias's contract right now, right? So I just think that people may have to be a little bit patient with that, because when we look at it, I mean, these are guys that the Sixers need to get rid of, and everyone knows they want to get rid of. So am I going to take on these guys knowing that they can't even help the Sixers? You know what I mean? Like Christian Wood is a quality player, in my opinion, and he's going there. And I just don't see Houston saying to the Sixers, okay, I'm gonna take in these guys. You know what I mean? And then people forget, this is the team that Houston thought Daryl Morey was going to retire. Daryl Morey takes over the Sixers. So, you have that little factor going on too.
So, okay, we've talked about the players. So far, we've seen 2 assistant coaches, Ime Udoka and Monty Williams, go and have extreme success after leaving here as Sixers assistants. Sam Cassell apparently is now under consideration for the Utah head coaching job. I've been clear that I have concerns about Doc and what they're doing and whether it's working. Are we going to let Sam Cassell walk out the door now too for another team to coach? Is that what I'm going to see happen?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that's a little, that's one of Doc's guys. And the thing about Sam Cassell, the thing where I'm going to get, start really focusing in on this is if he gets a second interview. Because, I mean, last I checked, I think they're interviewing 20-something guys for his job. It might not be quite 20, but it's a lot, right? And then you look at, and Sam is a great guy, great young coach, He has a relationship with Danny Ainge. He was an assistant. He played for the Celtics, and I believe he was a coach there as well, right? So for a little bit. So it's one of those things. He has a relationship, but I think it was a little different back then with those two guys. But the one thing you also got to say is it's part of the Spurs family, because Monty Williams was a Spur. He got his start there in coaching, and the same thing with Ime Udoka. They came here with the Sixers because of Brett Brown with the Spurs, that whole situation. But to me, when I look at it, it's more of, it looks bad, but it's more of the Spurs way, because let's face it, these two guys were only in Philadelphia for a year. I mean, Sam Cassell has been a Sixer longer than Monty Williams and Ime Udoka.
In fairness, I did want Monty Williams before they let him go. So,
but you know what? I was always told by a mutual friend that Monty would never have taken that job, because Monty's relationship with Brett Brown was closer than anybody could realize. Like, Brett Brown was the guy who got Monty involved in coaching.
So
he worked under Brett.
So he wouldn't want Brett forced out for him to get the job.
Now if that was the only job he could have gotten, but Monty was so well respected around the league, like he would never have done that. And I mean, heck, that's cool to say that, right? Because nowadays loyalty isn't.
What's loyalty in sports?
Yeah, what's loyalty? That's not even a word anymore.
Wait, Jason, in fairness, you would have taken anybody over the current coaches, the last two coaches.
Yes, and in fairness, I didn't just say it after the fact. So I mean, I say a lot of dumb things on the air that we can go back and point to.
Yeah, you complain in real time.
I do. I'm a real time complainer, and then an after the fact complainer too. Don't worry, I don't let that go. Go ahead, Jeff.
All right, so over the next week, we're going to have lots of draft talk. How many times do you have to charge your phone per day?
Not as much as I used to. I mean,
what's up?
It might be trade. Well, I mean, it's weird. Like the big difference here is like, what are the 76ers going to do? And it's not like, because in addition to saying who are they going to draft, like they have the guy Marjon Beauchamp, they got a guy Teron Eaton. They have EJ Liddell. They have a lot of guys like that. But in addition to that, there could be a chance for them to select a player for another team and basically trade the pick. So that's the thing that's really busy. I think that right now, and I was thinking about this when I was, driving my wife to work, is one of those things where when you look at it, everything has changed now. Now we're looking at it as if the main point of this free agency, everything this offseason, is James Harden. Like, what is he going to do? What are the Sixers going to do with this deal? And how are they going to build a team around it? It's like the draft isn't as important as it used to be, because when we look at it, now the Sixers they need to win the championship. They need to get out of the second round first, right? So is the 23rd pick going to be able to help them? And some people may say no,
Well, wait, let me answer the way Jason would. Well, not if Doc Rivers is not going to play him.
Never get on the court. And that's the thing. Look, I mean, if you look at it, Jaden Springer.
Jason, you could have just went to the beach for the weekend. I could have just
done the whole show. And Jaden Springer will end up being younger in their system than somebody they would have drafted at 19 years old. So if they actually give him a chance to play, they could move the pick and still have a young guy that they could bring in to fill a role. But they haven't seemed to be willing to do that in the past.
Yeah, we got a right point. I mean, you guys are correct. And like the only thing I can say about that is, like Doc, sometimes he brings up, look, man, I played Mike Miller when he was a rookie. Well, Mike Miller was one of the top picks. That was a couple of years ago, Keith. Yeah, and this and that. But the thing is, when I try to look back and I'm saying, well, how come he's not playing these young guys? It's like when you look at his rosters going back from when he had the big three in Boston, like, we're talking about, he had Sam Cassell on that roster. He had Eddie House. He had all these guys who were, veterans who were quality veterans towards the end of their career,
who could still play.
but could still play. And so you go there and you go to the Clippers, and then you come to Philadelphia, and it's like, I don't know, man, because like it's like to a point where do you have faith in this young guy? Because you know he's going to make mistakes. But you are correct. Sometimes you get them out there, they let them get their feet wet, and then they play and they do what have you.
I still argue that Tyrese Maxey should send a fruit basket to wherever Ben Simmons is living now, because that's the only reason he's become what he is, because there is zero chance, I believe, that he would have gotten the opportunity to do what he did in the regular season or the playoffs if Ben Simmons at 5% of Ben Simmons was available for this team.
Ben Simmons wouldn't have wanted to catch the fruit basket because then somebody would have fouled him.
Well, I don't know how to top that, Keith. Keith, any parting shots from Michigan before we let you go? Find out more tips.
Are you a Notre Dame fan now?
I'm going to be any fan that's not Michigan at this point. Jeff takes shots at me all the time.
I think he's actually talking to me right now.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, that will never ever happen.
I got a question.
I assure you.
I got a question though. Who's Rutgers starting quarterback?
Next year, Garrett Winsett is still. They had the guy who committed early and got the NIL money from Texas, so they actually have a good quarterback and they have a good recruiting class. We'll see what they do. You know me, I'm not going to sit here and oversell Rutgers, but they're not the 0-11 team they were my freshman year of college, ranked worst in the country by Sports Illustrated in 1997.
What state is Rutgers in?
You went there in 97. Oh, so I remember when I was at Pitt, right? And that was the first time that they lost to Rutgers in like the history.
That must have been a huge problem for you guys.
Senior. Yeah, and it was embarrassing. I remember we had a recruit. He was so what happened is like, you know where the student union is, Jeff?
Yep.
Right? So like they have the student union, and in the bottom level, they had like a little TV room. So they had this like not Parade All-American recruit, offensive tackle from Virginia, right? And I'm sorry for being long-winded, but we're sitting there and we're watching the game, and we were cool, and then but he was like a red shirt, and he said, "Damn, Dad, Keith, sorry, y'all." he says, I think I'm a transfer. I was like, what?
Just because you all lost to Rutgers?
You can't lose to Rutgers. You can't lose to Rutgers.
Believe me, I have been told that before, and I joke with Jeff. My first game, so they would give you at the time, they would give you a bus ride over, a free ticket, a free hot dog and soda, and people would go there, take the bus over if they went. They would have the hot dog, have the soda, and they would leave by the end of the first quarter because Rutgers literally physically looked like a smaller, slower football team than who they were playing on the field at that time. It was unbelievable how bad they were.
A bus ride? So it wasn't on campus?
So they have like 4 different campuses up there. So I was living on the main campus. Their stadium's on what's called the engineering campus over there. So they're like all set in New Brunswick and Livingston area there and Piscataway. And so you had to take a bus over because parking and the roads there are terrible. Obviously, they can't sustain a stadium. Not that they
so they gave y'all a hot dog. They couldn't give y'all a hamburger or anything like that, or a hoagie.
They could have given me straight A's, and I wouldn't have suffered through that season.
There's only so much they can do for all that in-state tuition.
Keith Pompey, thank you for your shots at Michigan and Rutgers. Thank you.
How many articles per day are we going to see during this next week? You must be working overtime.
Nah, yeah, and we'll see. Let me see what happens. I do one thing that I was talking to my editor was trying to do a story. The 4th year anniversary of the Mikal Bridges trade is going to be on the 21st.
Wow, way to end on a high note.
Yeah, so
we didn't want that trade done either.
I gotta rehash that one. So I'm gonna rehash that, and then
is his mom working for the organization still?
Nah, she left shortly after.
I'm shocked.
Yeah,
they didn't get anything for her either.
Keith, she may have Jeff's tickets now to the game. So
maybe.
Keith Pompey, follow him at what is it? Pompey on Sixers?
Yeah.
And in the Inquirer and on his podcast. Anything else? Like, you are the king of multimedia these days.
Nah, just don't follow me on Instagram.
If you follow him on Facebook, he does lots of trashing of Dallas fans and Eagles fans, so you can enjoy that. Have a good one, Keith. Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me, fellas.
Take care.